I wanna shoot.
Anyway, Deadpool. Well, I mean, I still think what I thought before, and as I thought about it more, I think I've become more, like, definitive in what I think. In that, it's definitely the funniest film I've seen in a long time. I'd say it's probably the funniest film since at least 22 Jump Street. And I think it's funnier than 22 Jump Street.
I think it's funnier than 22
Yeah.
Jump Street.
But like that's the last film I remember really thinking was funny.
I think 22 Jump Street was kind of clever in its individual jokes.
Yeah. So it definitely works as a comedy. It's very, very, very funny. And then as an action film, it is good. Good. As a comedy, it's great. As an action film, it's good.
I can get on board with that, to be honest, because I think a lot of the action was kind of
solid,
but I think it kind of, I don't want to use the word cheap.
I know
it is very.
I mean, because the thing is, it's about like we used this comparison before, but it's about like similar kind of level of expense as Kick-Ass. But like you said,
really?
Well, no, Kick-Ass is cheaper. So actually, Kick-Ass is cheaper. But the thing is, Kick-Ass managed to make it feel like
Kick-Ass didn't feel cheap.
It didn't feel cheap.
Kick-Ass 2 felt cheap.
I'll accept that.
Yeah.
But my point is that Kick-Ass kind of took advantage of like, okay, we'll do small contained action sequences, but do them really well. Whereas this just kind of goes junkyard, and there's a few men.
The settings make it feel cheap. And although the overall action is good, it's kind of over so quickly.
But the violence is good. The violence helps the action sequences, and some of the choreography is quite good. Like, you know, there's like, this is not a spoiler, but there's like a montage in the middle that's kind of like generic superhero montage where they kind of like develop their costume over time.
Is good, yeah.
And the stuff there is really good. It's just like, it's the settings, it's the frequency of the action sequences as well.
There's very few of them.
There's not many.
There's too few of them, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I think, because I think Chris and Jack were talking about this on one of the other radio shows, and they were saying like, oh, it's actually quite refreshing to have a superhero film that isn't on that massive scale with, like, you know, Man of Steel or whatever, where it's just building smash. And that's true. It's just a little too cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a little too much. But
aside from that, though, it is
very funny.
Very, very good. I think that is the only like thing I could take away from Deadpool.
And the fact that the other thing is, I would say that the character is very funny, does some very kind of like unconventional things, but the actual plot is quite straightforward and conventional, which isn't necessarily a problem, but I think
it's grounded in that convention, but it does some interesting things.
Yeah, I agree with that, yeah.
Kind of fine.
I think it's just because I don't want to sort of criticize the film for what it's not when it's not trying to be that, but when I was talking about before about the comic book storylines are really kind of like out there and cartoonish, and this is very much just a revenge story, which is fine. But when the character is done so well, you think if they did the story as well and the action as well, then it could be perfect.
It's kind of a great blueprint for a Deadpool movie.
Yeah. There's a sequel.
There's a really, really, really great sequel hiding somewhere that I just want to
and
come out soon.
with its success, it could potentially actually happen.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. They've already greenlit the sequel.
Yeah,
haven't they? So.
And as long as, you know, if they're not quite as restrained money-wise, then maybe they could actually do the action sequences as well. As well as that, the romance element is actually surprisingly good.
That's true, actually. Yeah. I think the romance element's one of my favourite parts of the film.
It is, because it doesn't feel like, I know you like, but it doesn't feel like, say, the whole Mary Jane thing, where it just kind of, for me...
Leave Mary Jane alone!
For me, got in the way a lot, and I was just always going, can we get back to the Spider-Man stuff? Whereas here, it's actually like, yeah, I'm happy to keep watching these people.
Yeah, definitely happy. And it doesn't cloud the story at all, like you were saying. It's kind of a welcome addition. It is part of the overall narrative because of eventually what happens towards the end.
Yeah.
But it's kind of towards the beginning, it's kind of an additional thing. But it is something that I almost wanted more of at times, actually.
I feel like I got more or less the exact amount I wanted, because it is a very, very well-paced film. It's like an hour and 45 minutes, and it does everything just enough, apart from maybe could have had more action sequences.
At the beginning, I wasn't crazy about the whole flashback thing, because a lot of the origin takes place in a flashback.
It would be the origin
within one
stuff.
action sequence, which is pulled out for way too long.
Yeah.
So that kind of bothered me a little bit.
Yeah, I would say the origin stuff is the stuff that I felt was a little too conventional, because the actual revenge plot's good, but the origin stuff is the part where it maybe doesn't feel quite as good as the rest of it. In terms of the jokes, because I was expressing like concern before that it was all going to be sex jokes and swearing jokes. They're not. and there are some genuinely great meta jokes in there.
Although we should probably put in a little disclaimer that Hell Cow isn't in it.
Hell Cow is not in it, but
so don't
sequel.
get disappointed
There's
if
the
Hell
sequel.
Cow doesn't show up.
I'll make a petition. I'll make a petition for Hell Cow to be in the sequel. But there's some really good meta jokes, and the thing that I was really happy about was that none of them, when I think of my favourite jokes from this film, none of them were in the trailer.
That's very, very true, actually.
Like, every single joke that I thought of that I laughed at, like, ridiculously hard, I hadn't seen before. And so the marketing campaign is really good for this. I don't want to, like, get 5-star marketing campaign because they managed to...
Fox. Yeah.
Because they managed to make the film look really good, but at the same time withhold some of the best bits.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is quite an achievement.
To be fair to them, a lot of the best bits they couldn't put in the trailers because they're, like, really dirty.
Or weird to contextualize because of the meta thing. Yeah, because I don't want to spoil any of the meta jokes because I hadn't heard them, and so there's no point in me ruining them for you on air. But the credit sequence might be my favourite part of the film, and that's not damning with faint praise.
No,
that's just the credit sequence is amazing. It might be my favourite credit sequence in a film, and you know that I really like credit sequences.
Thinking about it, it might be one of mine as well. It's definitely top 5.
It's definitely top 5. It's probably my favourite superhero credit sequence, which means it beats out Watchmen. And Watchmen has a great credit sequence.
Oh, that's very, very true.
And it maybe beats out Guardians as well. Guardians has a really good credit sequence too.
All of these are like top 5 words.
They are really good. Now. Superhero films have really good credit sequences.
This is something we could do, top 5 superhero opening credit sequences.
And
alongside top 5
Deadpool should win.
And Deadpool should win. Deadpool could win, and I wouldn't get angry about it.
Yeah, no. And like we saw it with a packed audience, but I've never seen an audience get so instantly on board with the film.
Oh yeah.
It was like from the opening credits, they were all laughing hysterically, and I've never seen it been in a cinema where it just felt like everyone was loving it so quickly. Like, there have been things like, say, Kingsman or Guardians, where I've seen it with an audience and it became apparent eventually that everyone was having a really good time. But with Deadpool, it was like that. As soon as it started, everyone was just, like, loving it.
It's a really great film to see with an audience as well.
Yeah, it is.
Because when you hear... I mean, this is usually just everything with comedies anyway. Hearing other people laugh at jokes kind of helps an awful lot. But here especially, because you get different people getting different parts of different jokes, because the jokes have so many layers to them. Some of them are just like straight up normal like sex jokes or whatever.
What I would say about them as well, because we talked about all the sex jokes and swearing jokes, they're at least funny swearing and sex jokes.
Exactly.
They're actually good
They're not
ones.
like that juvenile. It's not like, I assumed it would just be like a movie aimed purely at 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
But it's really not. There is a lot more to it than that.
Although 14-year-olds will love it.
Oh yeah, this will be like a 14-year-old something dream. I nearly said something bad for a minute there. You know what I meant. And I think one thing we do need to say as well, one of the reasons why the comedy hits so well is because Ryan Reynolds is so good.
Oh god, you haven't mentioned him. Yeah, he's perfect.
So perfect.
And it's not. I don't think it's just him. I think he is definitely the most perfect.
Yeah.
But the script helps. The script's really good.
I think it just shows that it is a labour of love for everyone involved.
Yeah, no, it definitely felt like
Ryan Reynolds, the star. Is it Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick?
Yeah.
The
writers, Zombieland.
Who wrote Zombieland as well, the writers, and the director Tim Miller have been trying to get this film made for like 7-8 years. They had it kind of going at Fox in 2009, and then it stalled, and they've kind of been going at it constantly since then, back and forth. So you can tell that they really, really care.
Yeah, no, they do. It definitely felt like one of the more like I'd say Guardians is up there in the same league of kind of like someone making it who really, really wanted to make it.
Definitely.
And wanted to make it their way and kept trying until they could make it their way.
Yeah.
And it definitely works. And I think Tim Miller did a really good job directing as well, because there are those. I mean, the action sequences he can improve.
It gets a little pedestrian at times, but that's just because it's his first film, I think.
But equally, there are some moments like that credit sequence that are really inventive and really like, that's good, that's cool, that's like a really cool, stylish visual thing. And as VFX supervisors turned directors go, he's probably the best.
Probably one of the best, yeah. And I know because there were a lot of hurdles that they jumped through to get it made. Like apparently on the table before it got officially greenlit, they had 2 scripts, the one that you see and a PG-13 version. And they literally could have gone with either. So they got lucky they went with the R. But just before they started filming, or it might have been during filming, they had a lot of cuts to their budget.
Yeah, no, I read that. Yeah,
recently. Yeah, it was like a lot of cuts. So one of the villains got squished into one character, and there was 2 of them. So Gina Carano's character was actually 2.
Oh, okay.
And there was a lot of there was a big. I know I told you there was a big gun battle at the end of the film, which got cut at the last minute as well. Which is kind of cut quite well with a really clever joke.
Yeah, no, that was a good. When it happened, I thought it was either a budget thing or they just really thought it was funny and came up with a joke.
So not only is it great, but it's great despite nearly being awful.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I get what you mean.
It's impressive. Very impressive.
The rest of the supporting cast are good too.
That's true.
Like I said, T.J. Miller sometimes annoys me, but here I thought he was really funny.
Good. And I think overall as well, something that I forgot to point out when we were talking about the romance element is Ryan Reynolds and Marina Baccarin, who are the loved up pair, the romantic couple, whatever. They've got really good chemistry. They really, really work as a couple, and I really bought into it. So.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Even though, like, I know that he's not the best. He's not like Heath Ledger or anything, but the villain's at least functional. Would you agree he's at least solid?
He's functional. I really wish he could have been a bit louder, maybe, because I think Ed Skrein is the epitome of cheap.
The thing is, I actually thought he was all right this time,
and
you know
from
that.
The Transformer
and he's the guy who got kicked off Game of Thrones.
The guy that got kicked. He has become the epitome of cheap.
I get what you mean, but I thought he was all right this time. But I get what you mean.
As a villain, he doesn't really they glance over what his superpower is really briefly towards the beginning. You don't really know what it is.
It's just that I won't say on here, but he's basically just got Captain America's powers.
He wound me up a bit. I think that was what I just wish he could have been a little bit better. Because Deadpool's such a loud character, it felt like if he had a really great villain to bounce off of, it could have been really good. And the villain is kind of fine.
The thing is, he is, like, from the source material, he is basically Deadpool's main villain. There just aren't... Because Deadpool has such, like, disconnected storylines, he doesn't really have, villains. So. He just has things that he goes from week to week. So he doesn't have any, like, great nemesis or anything. And this is the closest he has.
Be interesting to see what they do with the next one, because I know a lot of people...
I would like them to just go nuts.
Well, with the next one, they were talking about, before it came out, and obviously quite a lot more now, they're talking about bringing Cable into the sequel, which makes sense. It makes sense. It's probably the only way they really want to go, because I know Ryan Reynolds really wants to get the X-Force movie off the ground.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure. We'll just have to... Because Cable's not really a villain, is he?
No, but they are. The relationship... I can't remember who described it as this, but the relationship that Deadpool and Cable have is basically Riggs and Murtaugh.
Oh, so it'd be like a buddy cop movie.
Yeah, that's their relationship. Because like Deadpool's obviously the he doesn't take anything seriously. Yeah. He's all like loudmouth and everything. And Cable just is like an old grumpy man who doesn't
old for this. Yeah.
So that's the relationship they have. So that would be really good actually.
I cannot wait.
But even then, the best buddy cop thing they could do would be with Hellcow. That would have been perfect.
If you ever get that, it will be like one of these Marvel one-shots or something.
I would love it. It would be my favourite thing.
Ever be an actual film.
I'm going to start a petition. I'm genuinely going to start one now. As much as I like it and as much as I want to like it more, I don't really think I can justify going above an 8.
I was literally thinking exactly.
Yeah.
I was sat here, I was watching you, and I was like, depending on what Harrison does, I'm thinking of a 9 because it was so fun.
It is very fun, but you can't. It doesn't like when you think of films that are 9s, you think that was better than Deadpool.
There are like 1 or 2 problems with it, but those problems are slightly too substantial to go above an 8.
If as much as I've gone on about the origin story thing, I think if the action was good, I'd let everything else slide. If the action was really good, if the action was Kingsman level.
Yeah, but it's not kind of big enough.
Yeah,
enough. And at times it does feel a little bit too cheap and a little bit too much like a really great fan film. So, I don't know. And there's a few things with them kind of trying to slip it into the X-Men universe a little bit more, which felt a little bit slapdash. But, I mean, there are some really great jokes to that as well, but I don't know.
All right, cool.
8 seems like a right.
I think it feels fair.
Above all, it is probably going to be one of the funniest